Joining us on the podcast, somehow for the first time today, a man who, of course, his team has taken the 2025 Division I Women's College Tennis World by storm. They are through to the round of 16 following a 4-1 round 2 victory over Wisconsin. Welcome onto the podcast, head coach of the Auburn women's tennis program, Jordan Szabo. Coach, first of all, this is long overdue. Hand up, unforced error. I'm better than that, but thank you for taking the time to join me today. How are you and the Tigers feeling as you get ready for the Sweet 16?
Yeah, appreciate the invite. I don't know if it was an unforced error or not, but your show seems to be doing quite well without my appearance, so hopefully it doesn't go down from here. But no, we're doing good. We're here in Durham. We've had some good days of practice, and kind of on the final stretch to get ready for Friday.
No, well, here's why it's an unforced error. Because I could do 30 minutes on Jeremy Efferding stories from you. Like, that's
Right.
my era of college tennis. I have a distinct memory of seeing you on the doubles court in that UVA, I want to say, quarterfinal match in 2015 at Waco. And I
Uh,
was like, who is this guy? He's got good hands. And again, that's you in my mind. So that's why, to me, this is still, I'm like, I was impressionable then. The hero-like concept for the athletes you're watching. I don't need to explain that to you, but
yeah.
this is cool. Like, if you want to dive into some stories, I'm happy to.
Yeah, Jeremy Effing stories. I don't know if they can be on your podcast. Like a late night show, but like obviously, don't bring me back to Waco, Texas that year. Hopefully, if we can progress there, we have a better showing than we did against Virginia that day. I think my last college tennis match, I think it was over in about an hour and a half, but that was a pretty good team that the Virginia had that year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I remember that was the day where I said, "Oh, this Rinderknecht guy is pretty good. Like, I'm going to watch him more moving forward." But again, we can relitigate the past more
Mhm.
a little bit later. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your Auburn Tigers team. And again, it was a massive fall for your group, headlined, of course, with by DJ Bennett Jr. reaching the NCAA singles final. But again, this is your first season on the job. So if I would have told you January 1st that today you would be 25-6, the number 9 overall seed, and playing in the round of 16, what would you have said to me?
Yeah, I think after the fall we thought that we had some good players and we had a good team, but the fall doesn't always translate to the spring as you would know. So January 1st, I really didn't know where we'd go. The preseason rankings were kind of the first indicator that some people thought we might be just okay, but yeah, like we definitely probably would have taken the position you're in, but as coaches and sports people, you get kind of greedy and now that we're in the position that we are, we think we maybe should have done more and we definitely want more. So I think that sometimes you can get clouded by and look at the negatives that have happened, but we've had a lot of success this year for sure. The girls deserve all the credit. They've really grown as tennis players. They've come together as a team, and I feel like we're in a really good spot, towards the end of the year and the bumps that we've kind of gone through. We've learnt from them and we've got better and we've given ourselves a great opportunity here this weekend. So I would say as the coach, selfishly, I would have taken it, but now we want more for sure.
How valuable was it after a season of travel, which I want to ask you all
Mhm.
about, to have 3 consecutive weeks? Obviously, to get to host the SEC tournament, a week off, host the opening weekend. Probably haven't had 3 consecutive weeks at home since before January. How valuable was that for this team entering this home stretch?
Yeah, and even before the SEC tournament, we hosted the last weekend of the SEC regular season as well. So we were home basically for a month. I think this is our first match on the road since we played Tennessee, and I think that was like the first weekend of April. So we've been home for a long time, which I think for the girls is really nice. I think for us coaches, sometimes I actually don't mind being on the road because you feel like you can kind of control the environment a little bit more, and some of the distractions kind of go away. But I think it's been great for the girls mentally. I think it's been great for the girls physically, and playing tennis at home is definitely an advantage. I don't know all the stats on everybody's teams, but there's definitely the home court advantage in college tennis is relevant, and especially in the SEC. We've got great fan support down there at Auburn, and our conditions are different than anywhere else in the country for sure. So it's been really good. But like I said, like I've said earlier, we played really well on the road this year as well, and I feel like we can play anywhere, anytime, any place, indoors, outdoors, we can play good tennis, and we've had good wins in all those situations. So, but it's definitely been nice to be home. We would have liked to have played this match potentially in Auburn, but I guess we just slipped out of that top eight. And at the end of the day, your ranking's a direct reflection of your record and the way the algorithm works, and you kind of get what you deserve in tennis. And yeah, but we're excited to be playing, and definitely I think the time at home has refreshed us, rejuvenated us, and also not having to travel and stuff, you can get some good work in because you have less days where you have to travel and things like that. So I think we're in a good spot.
No, certainly. Again, the results have said as much. And honestly, I'm going to charge Allison for how much I've used her team as the example. But Tennessee, 10 in the country, 7 in the conference tournament by seeding.
Yeah.
How was that SEC travel grind? And I know it was your first year as the head coach, but you've obviously been very familiar with SEC play, given your long tenure at Texas A&M. That decision to play everyone, how do you reflect upon it a year later?
Like me personally, I think it's like by far the best thing for the conference. I think I don't know how many teams hosted the round of 16 onwards, but it felt like at all times there was, 7 or 8 teams in the top 16. And um I think it's the best thing for us. I think it's prepared us for hopefully deep runs this year. I think with the week off in between the SEC tournament and the NCAA's as well, I think it gives everybody enough time to recover because it was a challenging schedule. And I was speaking to someone, I think since, we had to go on the road to the kickoff and play USC right after they'd beaten Texas at the time. So I think they were in the top 10. I think every weekend from the last weekend in January through to the conference tournament where obviously we played good teams as well. We played a top 10 team every weekend bar two. So I think it prepares you. All you know is tough matches. And the end of the day though, like if you play teams that are weaker than you, they're still physical, they're still a grind. Every team in the SEC is tough. Like Mississippi State had a tough go of it this year, but they were a really good team. They had like a lot of really good players, and it was a tough place to play at. So, I think it's definitely the best thing for the conference playing everyone, and also with all these conferences growing, people, I found it really hard to get people to play and schedule matches as well of like type teams. So. I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big proponent of it. I think it only helps everyone get better. And honestly, I think, if you want to recruit really good players and players that want to have aspirations of playing professional tennis, they want to play the other good teams. So I think it's set us up for success. I think it's helped our girls grow and grow in confidence. And I think it's definitely the best thing for us. And I think also we obviously didn't win it. We finished tied third in the regular season, but I think it ultimately proves who the champion will be the fairest way. And I think it sets everybody up for the fairest seeding for the SEC tournament as well. So big fan from Jordan Szabo.
Now, I like to hear that. On the flip side, and I'm trying my best not to swear in these, but it's going to be
Hmm.
impossible not to when I read the following.
Okay.
At Georgia, at South Carolina, Texas A&M, Texas at home. That was a 4 match stretch you played. I don't know how as a coach you can't just look at that and be like, "Fuck." Like,
Yeah.
and obviously it was a tough stretch for the girls there, dropping that tough one at South Carolina as well. But how does a stretch like that? Like, in what ways is that a stretch you guys refer to in the locker room throughout the course of the season? What did your group learn about themselves during that again just brutal 2 week run?
Yeah, when I got the job in May or June or whatever, after got done with A&M, I did 2 jobs for one time for a couple of weeks. It was kind of a tough stretch for me. But after that, when I was like, I got to figure out like, do we have a schedule or do I have a schedule? I had nothing. And I was like, well, I can get the SEC schedule. So I get the SEC schedule from the SEC and I pull it up and it starts Florida, at Georgia, at South Carolina, at Texas A&M, at Texas. I'm like, okay, national champion, national champion, national champion, national champion. And it's not. And then I think the match after that it was like at Alabama, which is like the big match for Auburn. So I'm like, geez. And at that time I had like 2 players, so I was like, geez, this is going to be a tough run. And it ended up being a tough run, even once we had 8 or 9, 10 players. But I think honestly every week was like that. And every team is obviously good and having to play, us losing the South Carolina match obviously made it even tougher, I think. But I feel like every stretch is like that. Then the last weekend of the year, we play at Tennessee, we have LSU, then the SEC tournament afterwards. So, I think for the girls that are younger, it was a little bit of a wake-up call that, they're used to junior tennis or maybe, even lower level pro tennis where you get a couple easy matches, but no matches are easy. And I think that's a little bit what happened to us at South Carolina. We had a tough one against Georgia, and we actually didn't perform that poorly, but then we go out and win a really easy doubles point against South Carolina, and then they kind of smacked us in the face early on a few courts, and I think people were looking around being like, "What's going on?" And they hadn't really been in that position before, so I definitely think we learned from that time. I thought we came back after the South Carolina match. I told the girls, I think our season can go one of two ways. We can take a lot of tough losses here, or we can really grow from this. And I thought we actually played a really good match against A&M. The next match, we barely lose 4-3. It's like 6-4 in the third, but I really think that really helped us, and we ended up, winning against Texas, and they had Zaynalova playing, and but I think that helped propel our second half of the season. And I think that's what we've done a good job of for the most part is when we've had adversity, we've really grown from it. Sorry. And obviously we had a 3-loss stretch there, but we lost to Georgia and A&M, which are the two, top teams by far. It's kind of been this season. So every time we've lost, I feel like we've played better and gotten better from it. And I think that's credit to the girls that they're able to handle adversity and they're able to live in a space in a world of being where your feet are and focusing on the tennis and getting back to what matters.
Yeah. Well, to just get back to how you started, you did two jobs at a championship level. Let the record show, obviously, with how things finished
Mhm.
up at A&M and how things have started for you here at Auburn. And look, again, it's easy to lose perspective. It is your first year on the job. Did it help at all? Like, I'm sure the immediate stress of the moment, the answer was no. But to have so many new players on your roster this season who weren't accustomed to a previous head coach, has that helped make your transition easier?
For sure. I obviously can't say how it would have been the other way because I haven't
Sure.
lived that, obviously. But I do think having players that knew nothing different and then the players that did come back, DJ Angie and Ava Esposito. Ava Esposito didn't play a whole lot last year or at all, really. So she was basically like her freshman year. And, Angie's such a pro and DJ was just so hungry to get better and be in a stable environment that I definitely think it did help me. It was like a lot of like growing pains for everyone because no one knew what was going on. And having one or two freshmen, any coach will tell you is tough enough, but then having like 6 or 7 of them was like really brutal from just the aspect of like trying to get the training standards and what we expected. And because like obviously like every girl, how I was running the show was a little bit different and whether they liked how it was before or not, it's just different, and how I communicate, how different things are done, how warm-ups are done, how like the expectations for the preparation for practice and the different things that entail being a good tennis program. I definitely think it made it easier, but I do think there was an adjustment for those other girls a little bit, but hopefully all good. And I think the results for those girls, I feel like they've all those 3 girls who came back and I was able to convince to stay, have transformed their careers. So I think that it's definitely been positive, but I do think it helped me, trying to find 7 girls. We need to have a roster of 10. So finding 7 girls was pretty daunting, May 25th or whatever date it was. But once we actually established a team and realized that they could play some tennis, I definitely do think it helped me in the long term kind of be able to establish how I wanted to do things for the most part.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And you talk about the returning players trusting you and buying in, and all of them having these exceptional 2025 campaigns. Let's start with DJ.
Mhm.
I go listen to the footage. 2 years ago, I remember watching her. There's an early pod where I said, "Man, like that DJ Bennett, she could be something someday."
Mhm.
And she was good. Like I want to be clear, at the 2 and 3 spots, playing wherever she did for Auburn her first 2 seasons. But to make the final as she did, to be 14-6 in dual match play as she is, what was your approach in first working with her this year? Why do you think it's been able to take off the way it has?
Yeah, we didn't start working together. And she had like kind of a tough summer. It'd been like kind of a a brutal season for lots of reasons last year, and she kind of needed not a break from tennis. She was training, but she was away from Auburn, and honestly, I was not really around much either. I was trying to find players anywhere I could, but we started working together basically the day before school began, and I think for me, I'd seen her play some. I kind of feel like you did. Like we played her first year. She played JC Goldsmith, who like never lost a match, for her last 2 or 3 years. And one of the matches she lost was to DJ. And I was like, geez, that girl's going to be a tough out for 4 years. And then saw her the next year, and it seemed like maybe she'd stagnated, or she didn't look like the same DJ on the court. And obviously you come to learn things, and everyone goes through different things, right? And I just really wanted to take a fresh, open approach to tennis and get to know her. But you just look at DJ, the kind of athlete she is, the kind of firepower she has, the serve that she has, and I was like, she needs to be playing a little bit more offensively, and that was the thing that I really tried to do and hone in on. And she had made like an adjustment with her grip on her forehand, making it a little less Western, so she could drive through the ball a little bit more. And I just I knew she played great doubles the year before with Ariana Arsenault, who's obviously like done amazing on the pro tour for the doubles. So, obviously they're both credited for that. But yeah, so I just tried to get her to play more offensive and come to the net and use her God-given abilities on the court. And it kind of clicked. She had a really good first tournament, which helped me, I think, validate the things we were trying to do, having instant success. And she's very coachable, and she wanted to learn. And it's kind of snowballed from there. So she's obviously had an amazing fall and has transitioned in the spring. And she's actually been a couple times like close match, like she had match points on Brant Meyer when the match was stopped. And she was a set in 5-3 against Vidmanova at the national indoors as well, and she didn't get to finish that one. So her record could look even better than it is, but she's had a tremendous year. I think she has transformed her tennis career, and I just think, a positive environment around her, a lot of hard work, and getting her to use her body and her body shape, and how her height and her athleticism to the best of her ability has helped her transform her tennis career. And she's got obviously hopefully plenty of tennis to play left this season, and she's got exciting stuff with the US Open wildcard playoff already locked in this summer. And hopefully she can have a great summer and lead into a really good senior year. But she's an amazing girl. She's so fun to coach. She's been a breath of fresh air, just I think for me as a coach, but also I think for her. And I think she can make money playing pro tennis one day. I really believe that. And a lot of work still to do, and I think she understands that, but she's hungry to get there.
She's so well rounded. Like you're right, it's a little bit of everything, and you just feel like, oh man, I don't even know what the best version of her looks like yet. And I've been watching pretty closely for these
Yeah.
3 years, and so certainly looking forward to that. And then, again, Angela has been very good for a while now, but
Mhm.
21-3 is crazy good, especially given again an 11-2 SEC season as well, elevated up to the number 2 spot. You knew what you were getting, but what's it like to work with her each day? What's your approach to trying to help her take that next step?
Yeah, Angela always kind of was an enigma to me from the outside, and in because I would see these like crazy pro results where she'd win a 35K, or she'd win the African championships and beat top 100 girls, and then she'd be in college and she'd be like having an okay record at four, and it was kind of like it's kind of hard because she's obviously like a professional. She wants to win really bad. It's not that she's like tanking the college matches and just trying in the pro matches. So she was obviously overseas all summer, and she got back in about August as well, and we got to spend some time together. And an amazing person, amazing human being. I don't know if you've spoken with her. You really should. Like her story is incredible, and where she's come from and to where she is now. You definitely get like Kenya on your side if you got her on your podcast. So you get a new audience for sure. But she's an amazing player. She actually had a kind of a tough fall. I think after she was close to making the Olympics and she didn't quite make it. And I think she came back, and I don't think she was like discouraged in terms of her tennis level, but I think she was disappointed, feeling like she let people down potentially back home. And it was a big moment. She didn't get to reach there. And I think there was an adjustment period with us in terms of, we're trying to work on different things with her, and it didn't click straight away in the fall. And she started playing better and better as the fall went on. She had like I took her to like one of those pro events in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and she played like a really good first match and lost a real close match to Olivia Linzer. And then she went to she played the regional and she ended up making the final, so she made the NCAAs. And then she played a tournament like a 15K in like Nebraska, I think it was, and I think she semied it, and she should have or could have beaten Brodus, and it was like a really, really close match. I think she ended up losing like five in the third, and that's when I think she started kind of clicking. She went home for the winter break, had made a final of a 35, did really well there, and she just came back and she was playing a little bit more confidently. I think her forehand's gotten better, and I think that she's having a lot of fun out there. I think she's enjoying the consistency of playing all the matches, and I think she's just become a more consistent tennis player instead of like when the lights are on, kind of the flash in the pan, big results. So she's had an amazing year. She's been a lock for us in singles and doubles. Her and Myrna haven't lost a whole lot either. So I think she's really becoming a better tennis player. She has high goals and aspirations for a pro career. And, we were just talking today, like if she can continue on this path, in a year's time when she's getting ready to leave Auburn, like where could she be, as a tennis player? And but it's just like a really cool story. She's so easy to coach. She's like wants to be good, like a coach's dream out there. And she brings some amazing energy on the court as well, and passion, and people love watching her play.
Yeah, no, her and Mirna, of course, 18 and 4 together overall in the season at that number two double spot. And yeah, 18 plus 21, quick math, folks. You put up 39 points on our, I guess we'll call it 30 points, half a doubles point all the time. You're in the
Mhm.
30 club. That's a really good season by any metric you want to use. Obviously, we talked about the freshmen earlier, and for this team, I think the schedule has calloused them up as much as you could hope for from a tennis standpoint. But that off-court aspect, the chemistry of it all, I know you know how important that is down a home stretch like this. How have you gone about trying to establish that amongst this group, particularly again, given it's year number one for you, right? Like maybe the first time you've really had to lock in on that piece.
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging, because you have like the high end of like the older girls and you have a
Sure.
lot of younger girls, and the younger girls definitely don't know anything about anything in terms of the college tennis landscape. And but honestly, the Ava Harastar has done an amazing job of that, coming in third school. I think she has a little bit of a different perspective on, she's seen maybe like how teams do it the right way and wrong way, and good and bad. And she just wanted to leave it all out on the court this year, and have the best year possible. And she's done a great job of connecting the older kids with the younger kids, I think. And I think that was really important for her, having a team that was a team, and I think she's done a really good job of not only like leading the way off the court in terms of showing them how it's done, and what needs to be done, and the messages that I've been trying to relay to the group. But I think also, connecting the older kids with the young kids, because you were in college once, like when you're a freshman, you're more interested in doing different things than when you're a senior. And the tennis team's the standpoint. But I've always, as a coach, kind of tried to keep the tennis about the tennis, and be the tennis coach and leave the off-court stuff for them to figure out, and try to give them advice and recommendations. And hopefully they go and learn it. They came to college to learn and grow and make mistakes, but we haven't really had that. I think we weeded out a little bit in the recruiting process. We keep it about the tennis a lot, and try to find girls that tennis is the best part of their day. And they want to be professional tennis players, hopefully, or make a living in this sport. So you find, eight, nine, 10 girls that have at least one common interest, which is being a good tennis player, and the rest usually sorts itself out. But Ava's done a great job of that, and obviously DJ as well, being an American and knowing what it's about and seeing what the good and the bad looks like. But those two girls in particular have done a really good job of helping make my life not really be too worried about that stuff.
No, I'm glad to hear that. And look, again, a lot of great matches for your team this season. Is there one you would turn to in particular in your mind where you thought, yeah, I learned the most about my group this day?
Like there's been so many matches, like and so many like tough moments and stuff. But honestly, like it's gonna sound like a weird one, but like we went up to Arkansas
Mhm.
after we played Oklahoma. We lost Oklahoma 4-3 at home, and we had to do the one split weekend in the SEC that we all had to do this year. And we went up there and played, and we won the doubles easy, but we're like in an absolute dogfight. It's like 25-mile-an-hour winds outside, like the balls are going everywhere. Like there's like people call them the hogs or whatever they do. And we lost like four first sets and like nearly lost another one. And it was one of those ones after a tough 4-3 loss, which way is it gonna go? And I thought we were like a bunch of street fighters out there at the end of that match and like fired up and not scared. Like, we had everything to lose and not much to gain, honestly. That's what I was thinking as the coach, which I don't know if that's the right or wrong thing to be thinking, but we went out there and really competed and finished playing our best tennis, and we're not scared to lose. And I've seen a lot of teams be scared to lose in those moments against teams that on paper that you maybe meant to be better at. And that kind of got through the message that you just got to go out and play tennis and play every point and play one point at a time and bring an intensity that the other team can't match when it matters. And I thought we did that, and it's hard to do when you're scared of losing or losing a match that could derail your season potentially. So that was kind of a moment that I thought, well, we've really learned some lessons through this thing, and I think we can attack the end of the season really well. And I think we've had, a really good end of the season. So I think that was one moment. But honestly, is the first moment, going out and winning the kickoff weekend and beating USC at USC after losing the doubles, and that kind of made us believe like, yeah, we're a team that's in the hunt, and I think that gave us some confidence. And then you go after a tough loss at the indoors to Georgia and beat UNC, and then I think the girls start believing that like, maybe we can do something this year.
Yeah, and obviously do something you have as you've reached the round of 16. If you could go back in time and budget more time in practice for one thing for this group, whether it's on or off the court, what might you pick?
One or thing in budget in practice. We practice a lot and we practice everything, but honestly, like probably like early in the year, like working on a little bit more doubles. I think we lost a lot of doubles points early on in the year, and we stuck with the same pair all year long, which is pretty rare for a team to do that struggles like that. But I was like really confident that we had the right teams to go and be successful and win more often than not. And so probably some doubles early in the year. And here down the stretch, I feel like we've prepared pretty well. Maybe a little bit more time for rest. I need to make sure that we're not doing too much. But yeah, probably a little bit more of the doubles and being aggressive in the doubles and teaching the basics of playing good fundamental doubles that my coach Steve Denton was teaching me back in the days. So got to make sure not get lost in the basics.
Yeah, decent doubles player. I think Austin Krajicek and Jackson Withrow would both agree with you,
Yep.
certainly on that list. And no, I mean, again, obviously you're focused on the here and now and making sure
Mhm.
your team is prepared for this weekend. But of course, this week is the week that the transfer portal opens, and I know you just took in a massive freshman class, and
Mhm.
just about everyone but Ava could return next season,
Mhm.
should they choose to. And yet, I'm curious how you view the portal in the broader roster construction as you consider it.
Yeah, I think it's like a tool, definitely. It's one of those things, it's hard to save too much room for the portal because you never know what's going to be on there. It definitely seems like some of the better players that go on there maybe already have their mind made up on where they're going. So it's kind of a delicate thing. But I've actually, as a coach, obviously with Mark at A&M and this year, I've had a lot of success like getting like one player on the portal each year. And that's kind of really helped the team elevate. And, Carson Brandstein, Selma Ewing, Nicole Kieran, obviously this year with Ava Harasta, players that have helped, transform the team. I think all of those teams, if that player wasn't on that team those last 4 or 5 years, like the team's success definitely wouldn't have been the same. So I think it's definitely a tool. I think it's different at some schools. I think probably some of the higher academic schools, it's maybe not as needed, but I think at schools like Auburn and Texas A&M, like using the portal can help elevate you. But the portal is it's one of two things generally. It's like players looking for a new environment, or it's coaches wanting players to look for a new environment. So, there's sometimes used goods on there. But I think it's been successful, and I think it can be successful whether it's players with maybe somewhat questionable pasts. And I think some of the players like I've recruited off the portal over the years has maybe been like that. But I think you got to trust your environment, and if you keep it about the tennis, like, and they want to come for the right reasons, like it'll work. So definitely like looking and refreshing and seeing what players pop up there and trying to get in contact. But it's just hard to know because it seems like a lot of the really good players already have got places, but the players that are on and we're communicating with, we're having good dialogue with, and there's some players that we're excited about, but it's a really tough balance. I don't think it's like, our Auburn men's basketball team, I think lost like every player from their like Final Four team, and I think they've gotten 9 guys in the portal. I don't think tennis is quite there yet on the women's side. I think the men's side, I think it's a little bit different. Maybe it's a little bit more like you could do something like that, but it's definitely a fine balance for sure, I think. But it's one that's really like helped me as a coach, I think.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your perspective on it. I'm going to ask you to put on the pundit hat for this
Okay.
next question because I'm always curious what all of you coaches are thinking. I like to think you
hmm
guys are the best brains we have in college
hmm
tennis,
hmm
other than your own matchup, which is one a lot of people have turned to as their favorite matchup of the weekend. If you could dive headfirst into any of the other 7 round of 16 matchups, which would you pick and why?
Um, I like I don't know if it's the best match, but I quite like the North Carolina NC State rivalry match. I think it's hilarious that they're playing again and they seem to play all the time, like whether it's national indoors or NCAAs, they're always playing each other. But I think probably the most interesting match, like on paper, would be the Michigan Texas match. Probably outside of ours. Texas, they seem to be a little bit up and down. I think they've got a lot of young, really talented young players, and you never know if Zaynalova is going to be healthy. It seems like she's been playing down the stretch, and they beat Georgia. Only two teams have beaten Georgia all year, and it happened on one weekend. Right? Oh, I guess North Carolina beat them early in the year as well. But if you can beat Georgia, you can beat anyone. And I don't know what the weather looks like in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but I'm sure Howard would like to play that match outside. But they played really well. We played them inside, and they played really well against us inside. But you got so many young players on that team, and I think Howard's, if not the best, one of the best coaches in college tennis, and so I think he's going to have his team ready to go. But it seems like you never know what you're going to kind of get, and I think that's kind of having a young team, and that's something I've personally been worried about this year is you never know what you're going to get with sometimes young players, but they're so talented, and Howard's such a good coach, so that would definitely be an interesting match for sure.
It's going to be very, very fun, certainly. And yeah, having just interviewed Ronnie, 78 and sunny. That's what I've heard the weather report is. So all
Right.
signs say that one's going outdoors. That one's going to be a fun one. A lot of good ones this weekend
Yeah,
up
for
and down the
sure.
board. And so
hmm
very much looking forward to watching all of the action unfold. And yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of people going to be watching your match because certainly that one's going to be a battle as you take on eighth seeded Duke in Durham. Talk me through what you view as their biggest strength, and then ultimately, of course, what it's going to take for you guys to advance.
Well, obviously a championship caliber program. Jamie's been the coach there for who knows how long. He's probably been in like 30 Sweet 16 matches before as a coach. I'm still at the phase of my coaching career, whether as an assistant, I'm excited to be playing the round of 16. So, um, they're obviously a really talented team. When you've got a girl who's won San Diego playing line four for you, you've got a girl at line six who's played in all the junior Grand Slams. They've got lots and lots of really good tennis players, um, for whatever. But they do have some young players like us as well, and they're playing in high spots. But I think the thing about this match is like everyone is like in a very accomplished tennis player on their team and has had, some great wins this year, I'm sure, and great wins in their tennis career. But it's probably a lot of these girls' first Sweet 16 match, on their side and on our side. So I think that's just like a different element that will come to play. Whereas I think the tennis might not be the most important thing in the match. It might be the moment, or it might be the nerves, or who can handle the chaos the best. I really believe whoever can control their emotions and be calm in the big moments will win the match. I hope it comes down to the tennis. If it comes down to the tennis, I like where we're at. It's a great place to play Duke. They have really nice courts. They a good speed where I think any player can play at a high level. The weather does look iffy. Like a chance of some rain and things like that. So who knows whether there will be inside or outside. But you got Liv Hovde, Wimbledon champion. You got Lena Yu, San Diego champion. I don't think there's too many teams that have multiple girls who've played major or Grand Slams on their team. But I like where we're at. I think the doubles could be important. But saying that for us, our sake, I feel like we can win 4 points against anyone in the singles at different spots. But I feel like, I don't know the records and don't try to pay attention to them too much, but I'd imagine where our good records are, maybe their weaker records are, and where their better records are, maybe where our weaker records would be. So I think it's one of those matches where it could be a 4-3, it could be a 4-0. Time will tell, but I know from our perspective, we're going to be ready to go. We're going to try and make it an SEC type match, a feisty match, play with an edge, and hopefully, continue to shock the college tennis world and come out with a great performance. But I don't think the doubles is critical for us, but I do think that it's definitely something that would we'd like to have in our back pocket.
Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to the battle. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. By the way, you have unique perspective on this question, and you alluded to it, so I will ask you, as someone who
Mhm.
got to be a part of it last year, about a rivalry right now. And I think these two rivalries define women's college tennis in the 2020s. UNC NC State or Georgia Texas A&M?
Well, like it's like if I'm wearing my like Texas A&M graduate and Texas A&M, that I definitely think Texas A&M and M and Georgia. Like I just think the matches have been so dramatic, and obviously living in a lot of them, obviously not the ones this year, but um, like last year, like I was coaching Mary and she's up 5-1 the third and loses to Vidmanova, and then like we have to play him in the SEC final, and it's like meant to be wet, and we're like praying for the match to go inside because we just like lost the match outside on the courts, and we go inside with like 2,000 Georgia fans like barking at us in the warm up, and we like get absolutely smoked there, and then we have to go inside in the national championship match and we win it. But there's been so many epic matches in that rivalry. I think the added thing for UNC and NC State obviously is that they're like 20 minutes apart. I think that probably plays a different thing, and most of their matches have been either there at each other's place or in Cary, whereas I feel like we've played matches all over the shot. When over the years we played a match at Florida, I remember a match at Arkansas, we played at Alabama, but I think the fact that the last five SEC finals have been between A&M and Georgia, I think that maybe gives it, they've just been so dominant, both teams in the conference. So it's a really fun rivalry. It's lots of good players, a lot of players who are coming to the end of their college careers as well. So we'll see if the rivalry can live on. But yeah, it's definitely a fun one. And hopefully for Auburn Tigers' sake, we won't see another matchup like that this year. So
Yeah, no, and I apologize for asking you about a different school. It was
that's
fascinating to hear
okay.
your perspective. And by the way, I've told this to Drake. I told this to Coach Weaver. I would say this to Chaps the next time I see him. I blame you guys for that rivalry not being understood the way UVA USC was because you guys all like each other. Like, there's too much respect. There's too much, like, again, you guys want to hang out, and justifiably so. I like all of you as well. But it's like, that's the only piece missing from that rivalry is there's no like, oh, don't you remember the hook and it all went to shit from there and everyone got
Yeah.
angry. It's like, no, there's like, it's just been really good tennis.
Yeah, I think it's just Mark and Drake are both very classy and
For sure.
mind their own business for the most part in everything. And obviously Jared and I kind of grew up together in Australia. Like I remember we played each other when we were 10, 11, 12 years old. So we've known each other for a long time. And I think honestly, like the best teams in the country, like you don't have that kind of behavior generally from the top coaches. Like they keep it about the tennis, and they know the match is won between the lines. It's not won between the coaches. The coaches only play so much of a role. That their work is done behind the scenes, preparing the players, and you're there. Just there's only so much you can do on match day. But who knows? I think the rivalries between the coaches, if the teams weren't doing so well and playing in such big moments, if they're playing like the second round of an SEC match or something, maybe that's when the tempers will be flared because they're not happy with where they're at. But it's pretty hard to be too discouraged or too worried about what the other coaches are doing when you're playing for a national title or an SEC title every time you play. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe we get them in a different arena. You can see some different parts of their personalities.
Very, very fair. Again, it'll be on your Auburn Tigers to inject that doubt into their typical SEC finals.
Yeah,
And
but we've
so,
got we got a long road to get before we can start knocking off those teams. But we'll see.
well, I would argue not that long of a road as a win could mean a hypothetical battle with Georgia, but got to get through this weekend first. And obviously, it's a massive match ahead, and that's why I'm very appreciative that you take the time to come chat with us here today. Auburn women's tennis head coach Jordan Szabo, welcome to the show. This will not be the last appearance, that much I can promise you, and really appreciate you taking the time. Good luck to you and the team.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks for everything you do. My wife's always tuning into you, and Jay tweets tennis's little stuff, and I try not to listen too much of her mumbo jumbo. She talks about it, but keep doing a good job. But I definitely know there's a big tennis community out there that enjoys it. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
Yep, thanks.
Recording.